I think we'll start. Can everyone hear me? I hope I hope it's audible. If not, please use the chat. We love using the chat function to communicate with one another throughout the session, and it's a good way to ask questions. Questions are always welcomed, of course, and I will try as much as possible to get to every single one of them. So welcome to the third in the series. We've done a series of webinars. We finished 2 already for the month of May with core direction. And today's topic is all about finding purpose and meaning. And I don't know if we should say finding meaning and purpose or purpose and meaning. It's a chicken and the egg situation. So let's get going. Just to go over what the agenda is today. So we're going to really be talking about what purpose means. What is purpose and why do we need it and how we can cultivate it, which I guess is going to be the time that we most spend on today, this part of the agenda. Some friendly reminders. We love questions, as I mentioned, so please feel free to use the chat to ask your questions, make comments, anything at all. Let's try to keep it as interactive as possible via the chat. And then, of course, if you have anything afterwards, you can always reach us at contact@cheerful.com in case you'd like any other further information. So let's just get right into it. So, I actually always start off with this quote, and it makes so much sense, especially in relation to the topic that we're going to go into today, which is, if today were the last day of my life, what would I want to do what I'm about to do today? And I'm just going to throw that out there and use the chat to respond. What do you guys say? If today, would you still continue doing what you're doing today? If that was somewhat the case, or if that was something that you were thinking about. It really just means, how happy are you doing what you're doing today? Do you have purpose and meaning in everything that you're doing today? So feel free to respond as I go along. I'm not going to wait for the responses, and then we'll look at them later. So what is purpose, really? And, we talk about purpose and we talk about meaning quite a bit. And we talk about the idea of having purpose and meaning, and we talk about how we all need to actually enjoy what we do and find happiness in the way life is around us. And, the fact of the matter is, the talk about purpose and meaning started way, way, way back in history. I mean, even, since Socrates and Plato and Aristotle, the ancient philosophers were the ones who actually started off talking about it. And since then, there's been a number of studies and research that's been done in order to understand how our behaviors, our thoughts, our feelings, and our physical well-being are all affected and linked to the idea of having meaning and purpose. So it's almost like, if you think of it, you think of it in the matter of, your purpose is sort of like the root in a tree, and your tree is the life that you lead with all of the branches, right? And how you live your life. And then very often, the way we live our life starts to divert from our purpose. So it moves in different directions from the core values, from what matters most. And so we kind of end up feeling lost and distant, and a little bit confused sometimes as well. I mean, I know I've felt that way throughout the course of my life. Has anybody else felt that way? A little bit frustrated sometimes because they're sort of not knowing where they're going and how they're going to get there. And it's confusing, and it can be really scary. So, one of the things that we can do to help ourselves during this time is really to remind ourselves to self-affirm, which means to actually go back to the core and see where we want to go. Where did we start from? Now, the interesting thing to keep in mind about purpose and meaning is that it's not definitive. And that's also the most beautiful part about it, right? Because it's not something that is going to stay on forever in the exact same way. It changes, it evolves over time, depending on where you are in your life, depending on what you're surrounded with, and what you need to achieve as well. So much for what is purpose. And as I mentioned, all of the ancient philosophers talked about it and they love talking about it. But one of the questions that I want to ask is, what do you think? Is it the meaning of life, or is purpose the meaning in life? Does anybody have any comments to make on that sentence? What do you think it is? Is it of life or in life? Okay, I'm gonna let you guys ruminate on that one a little bit and answer when you can, and we'll keep going on. So essentially, when we look at purpose, we look at it as a central sort of aim, or life's aim. It's also a self-organizing aim. And why do we say that? It's really because it allows us to put structure, a framework into what we're doing and how we're doing it. So, we want to keep in mind that it becomes a theme in that period, or in that time period for a person in their life. And it also motivates that person, gives them that impetus and that self-discipline to be able to dedicate their time, effort, financial resources towards a specific direction or goal. So purpose really forms the overall or overarching structure of movement for an individual, and where they want to go and how they want to do it. Now, one of the most important, some of the most important questions we ask ourselves when we're looking at purpose is, what is the theme of your life? Who are you? What is yourself? So this is what we're really asking when we start to question this need for purpose and this need for meaning in our lives. What is the theme? And who am I? Who am I and what am I? And these are questions that periodically tend to occur over and over again during different times in your life as well. And it's funny, right? Because the answers tend to change and evolve as well over time. And sometimes you look back in your life and you sort of think of the answers that you had for yourself to those questions, and you find it interesting that that's what they were, because they could be so different from what you would, or how you would answer those questions today. So why do we really need purpose? And what is it really? So what about a family? Do you guys think a family can be a purpose? Anyone? Does anybody want to use the chat to answer the question? Okay. We have an I don't think so. Anyone else? Anyone thinks a family can be a purpose? Can a family have a purpose as a group? Okay. Yes, okay. We have a few people who do think so. And in a way, yes. I mean, I think a family can be a unit of purpose, right? But also individuals, yes, it depends on different individuals. So also individuals in a family may be taking care of other individuals in the family, and that might actually give them purpose, whether it's taking care of parents or children or partners. So, in a sense, how you raise your children, sometimes that becomes a common purpose with your partner. Even taking care of your parents and the previous generation becomes a common purpose for the family sometimes. So yeah, a family in a way can be a purpose. And it's kind of, it's interesting to see, because when family becomes a purpose, then you actually start to see how that purpose evolves over time and how a person ages with purpose as well. So, one of the things that I like to start off with is to remind always myself, and this is actually an exercise that I'm going to share with you through the course of these 20 minutes. So it's really important to remind yourself why having purpose, why having meaning in our life is important. And, part of that is because it's, having purpose and meaning leads to happiness and health. Now, there are as I said, there's a lot of research out there, and there were 4 specific studies that actually showed that after controlling a lot of different factors, such as the health status and health behaviors, people actually live longer if they have a strong purpose. On average, they live longer. So they actually live for longer periods of time. So also, it was found that people who have a strong purpose and meaning in their life have fewer sleep disturbances, tend to eat more healthy, tend to look after their body physically in a more healthy manner as well. And we'll get to that a little bit later in terms of how that all links up. And diseases such as cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, any of the other physical health conditions tend to actually decrease in terms of prevalence as well. So all of this is all the good stuff, and it all comes with having purpose and meaning. And this isn't just words, it's actually been proven, and there's evidence to show it, which is a beautiful thing. Now, so some of the other side effects, which is also interesting, is that people with purpose and meaning happen to make more money. And that sounds actually plausible, right? So you actually think about it and you say, well, that makes sense, because if someone has purpose and meaning, that means whatever they're doing in terms of work, they're enjoying, and so they're doing it better. They're more invested in it, and so they're actually doing better with it as well. Financially, they're getting the rewards. So which is good. And then at retirement, this I thought was an interesting stat, was that, if you have purpose, or if you can repurpose your life at retirement, you are 2.4 times less likely to suffer 7 years later from any sort of strong physical ailments or any sort of mental health challenges as well. And that I thought was really interesting because of the word repurpose. So it's not just having purpose today, but it's also looking forward to the fact that in 30 years, 40 years, when you're retired, you're able to repurpose your life into something different, something new for yourself to live through and to take on. So that's where I mean when I say that purpose and meaning tend to evolve. So now we'll just go right into it, and we will start talking about how to cultivate purpose and how to actually find that meaning. Does anybody have any questions or any comments, or they want to just give in their 2 cents worth? Please feel free again to use the chat. So cultivating purpose. Now, what I've tried to do for our presentation, for our webinar here, is to really structure it in an easy way that we can follow. And also, given the fact that we only have 20 minutes to 30 minutes, I just wanted to make sure that we got all the information across. So I put it into 3 simple steps. The first being self-affirmation, then developing B goals, and then finally, how do we take action? So self-affirmation really is about yourself, right? It's about asking yourself a series or a set of questions that really help you to understand what your values are, who you are, what your theme sort of is. So these are the questions that we start off with in self-affirmation. So, there's a whole bunch of different questions, and these are just some of them. So who am I at my best? So this is really about what kind of person I am, right? So, there's a different bunch of ways that we can be our best self. Are you loving, for example? Are you kind? Are you healthy? Do you laugh a lot? Are you funny? Think about what it is who you are, what it's like when you're at your best, when you feel the best about yourself. And it's an important it's a really important thing to try to imagine and to think about, because that is who you would like to be, ideally, right? So, there's a couple of other things that you can think of. Are you super active? Do you connect easily with people? Do you socialize more? Are you empathetic? Are you more generous? Are you more sensitive to other people? There's a whole list of different best characteristics. Grateful, dependable, happy. Are you calm? Are you resilient? Are you energized? So make a list of all of the different characteristics that you feel you are when you're at your best. Now, I can just keep going on about this, but this is something that you need to also think about in terms of who you are, right? So, what would you pick? Like, are you community minded? Are you caring? Are you when you're your best self? Are you supportive to other people? So, the second question is what matters most, and that actually is about what you value the most in your life, right? So, what are the goals in your life? What are the direction that you want to go to? So, what is it that you value most in your life? So, let's get into that part a little bit as well. So, how do we find out what we value the most? Anyone? So, I actually found a very simple way of doing this, right? And it's using your phone, essentially. So, if you go to your wallpaper, and you check your wallpaper, and I always have a whole bunch of different images and pictures that I save on my wallpaper, right? So, yeah, what we spend the most time on, exactly. That's right. So it's really about, my wallpaper has different images on it. So I have an image of a pyramid, and for me that's important because I identify it with travel and adventure. It was the Louvre in Paris, so I also identify it with things like spirituality, for example, and pyramid. I also identify it with psychology and a sense of hierarchy of needs. I have, I have a candle as well, and that for me identify it with being calm and being sort of very peaceful. I have pictures of my family, my children. I have a picture of the beach because I love to be outside. I have pictures of my friends. So this is something that you can do very easily, this exercise, right? So it's really a matter of going into your phone and checking to see what are the images that you spend most time at. And most of our phones are smartphones today, so they really will tell you as soon as you go into that folder, like this was the most recent or this is the most looked at. So it's really about going through that and sort of trying to understand, okay, so these seem to be some of the things that you think matter most because this is what you're looking at, this is what you're engaging with. So finally, once you've got that, the next part of it really is to really decide who you want to be. So it's about, I want to be a certain type of person. I want to do certain type of things. And one of the ways I can suggest doing this is really writing out that statement, right? How do I want to be remembered? And this is a really important statement. We use it in psychology and mental health a lot, and it's called mortality salience. So it's really about understanding from a little bit out, from outside yourself almost, how you want to be remembered. How do you want people to talk about you? And this is really important. So it's about putting all of the other two questions and the responses from the other two questions together into this one statement. So, there's a whole different bunch of examples I'm giving you here in terms of who I want to be, right? So I want to be something. I want to be some way. I want to help people. I want to be an adventurer. All of that. So the last step towards this entire process is really to then take action, which means being purposeful. So I've actually given you this sort of an outline to make it really clear on the steps that you can take, right? So this is something that I've worked out for myself. And the flow is very easy to do for yourself as well. So you answer the first few questions, and when I looked at what I value the most, and when I look at what how I am at my best, I found that these were the things that came up really. So this, my family, friends, beauty and nature, adventure, new places. I read a lot, so there's a lot of research and fact, and spiritual practices. So then I put all of that into, how I want to be remembered kind of a sentence, which is to be a family person, a true friend. My friends are important, respectful of natural beauty, to explore new places and travel, to learn new things, and share my knowledge. right? Because I also like the idea of spiritual and well-being practices as well, but they need to be based on evidence and truth because I like research and fact, and to share that with a larger community. So this became my purpose statement, so to speak. And from that, I started to then understand, okay, so what are some of the goals that I need to really have to be able to fulfill this meaning or purpose in my life? And some of the, and you know, a lot of it has to do with being empathetic and listening and being able to communicate clearly, to being less afraid to be able to go on adventure, to being patient so that I'm a good friend and I'm good with my family, to be energetic because I want to keep up with all of the different practices and have good health. To be a strategic thinker, especially if I'm looking at research and facts and evidence-based solutions, and to maintain consistency and discipline, right? Because I enjoy spiritual practices. Now, to be able to be all of those things, I need to have action goals, actions that I can actually do to support that, right? So that's what, you know, you start to think about, okay, what is it that I need to do to be able to be a good listener? I need to practice active listening. I need to be more patient. I need to learn how to be patient and practice active listening. I need to maybe read more and have a bigger perspective if I'm going to be a strategic thinker, if I'm going to, you know, base things on evidence and research. You know, if I can, you know, if I want to appreciate nature, I need to make time for myself to be able to go outside, to go running or walking. If I'm going to be adventurous and less fearful, I need to consciously make a decision to try new things and to learn new things, right? And, you know, to do all of that, I need to be healthy. And to be able to be healthy, I need to make sure I sleep well, that I eat healthy, and that I get my exercise. So, you know, it's really about things like, for example, if I want to spread the word in a larger community, to be able to conduct webinars like this, to be able to be on platforms that actually access and reach out to larger community. So these are the ways you sort of start to link your self-affirmation, your be goals, and your actions to be able to make them tangible, to make it into something that you can actually take away and do something about, right? So I'm going to give you another example of this, right? So say you have somebody who says, you know, I want to be a leader, a good leader, and I want to be able to lead my teams in a good way. So this is an example of somebody, an entrepreneur who wants to be a good leader, right? He's just set up a startup company. He wants to, and his purpose is to be energetic and innovative and engaged and inspiring as a leader, right? So these are all the characteristics that he wants to develop to be a good leader. So that's amazing. And you know, for him, he tends to think, and this is an example, he tends to think that a good leader is somebody who's innovative, who comes up with new ideas, and who is you know, creative. So he thinks, all right, one of the ways I could do that is to learn how to draw cartoons. So he starts to take classes in being able to draw cartoons and in drawing, essentially, right? To add on to the creativity aspect of it, to get his right brain sort of energized. And then he says, you know, fine, you know, he becomes a stronger leader through it. And then he wants to also be more engaged with his employees. He wants to actually start to connect with them in a stronger way. So he starts to put things in place, like, for example, having lunch with his employees or having casual meetings with his employees, maybe doing more casual team building things that actually his employees relate to within the startup. Maybe having meetings that are not about work, more about what is happening in everybody's lives, these kind of things, right? But one of the things that is tangible is the lunch sort of dates, so to speak, with the employees. And so he starts to connect more with his employees because he's having conversations that are not always about work. The next thing he wants to do is he wants to be more energetic. Okay, great. So he wants to be more energetic, and for that to happen, he needs to take care of himself physically. So he starts to go biking. And that actually, works in across two things as well, because other employees that help him go, who are also interested in biking, connect up with him. So it forms a group that is outside of the workplace, but yet, allows everyone to connect and stay healthy and stay fit and increase their energy levels. Maybe he also starts to think, well, you know what, one of the ways to do this is we need to make sure we all eat healthy. So he starts to put in place programs for his employees and himself where they all start to eat healthy, right? And that builds up energy. And then finally, inspiring. So things like yoga and meditative practices and mindfulness practices, and these are all very inspiring, they're all very inspirational, making sure you get good sleep. So he starts to put all of these actions and do sort of action items in place to be able to be more innovative, be more engaged, be more energetic, and be more inspiring, and hence become more of a stronger leader for his team. So again, you see how it all connects back, and this is how we start to connect things in that sense. Well, thank you, everyone. And I would like to, for those of you who were here last week and the week before, you might have received emails from us. And the emails always contain a link to the video, so this video, and also the previous sessions. And you're welcome, everyone. And also the emails will contain a very short questionnaire, like a screener that we did for anxiety, and we also did for building resilience. And I'll also send one out with this one in terms of finding purpose and meaning for yourselves. So thank you, and I hope you guys all have an amazing rest of the day.